Oh, now would you look at that? It's a 1985 Toyota Supra. That might be something cool to bring into Cone's garage to do a little bit of a restoration on. Seems like it's pretty clean too. You know, I've seen worse cars from the 80s. You know, these 80s Japanese cars, you really gotta watch the rust. And you know, the rust and the rust and the yeah, I don't think I know how to weld. Oh, there's a lot missing there, guys. I guess we're gonna learn how to weld, huh? But you know, I'm sure the interior's pretty good. That's oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's all there, isn't it? There's a good start. I do like hatchbacks. Hatchbacks are cool. But you know what? It runs pretty good. Pulls strong, idles nice, and great.
That could not have been better.
Alright, so a little bit of a real walk around here. This is a 1985 Toyota Celica Supra. It is what is considered to be the Mark II, Generation 2 Toyota Supra. But at this time, they were still, as you can see there, Celica Supras. It is somewhat similar to the Mark III, which is the first of the actual Supras, if you will. However, not a whole lot of part sharing happened between them. This is a mix of new school and old school. Independent French suspension, McPherson style, but a lot of it is not stuff that is easily adaptable to the new stuff. It doesn't use, you can't just like bolt up coilovers to it, stuff like that, you know. It's just got some older architecture to it. In the rear, it's semi-independent, I would call it. It's kind of like a torsion bar setup. Very, very interesting setup back there. It's all stuff that is pretty good for the era, 1985, and this was the end of the run. Like, this is the last year of a Mark II. So it's good stuff. It's not great stuff. Our plan for this car is a good tourer. I think it's a great cruiser. Not only that, but it's also something that I think would be a lot of fun to do rallycross and stuff like that with. It has the suspension, it has the clearance to do such things. Honestly, it's the only thing we can really do with it that would be competitive. This car would be really hard to autocross. It's just, we will. That's the goal. We want to autocross it, but to do it competitively with a car like this, probably not going to happen. It is big. It looks a lot like a 86, but it is much larger. You can see it next to the 240. They're parked at about the same spot, and it goes much further. It is much taller, and it is wider, and it is heavier. One of the coolest features, I think, is the factory wheels. They're 14s, but they're 14 by 8s, and they fit these nice factory, this is, I believe, P-type fender flares. Some of the cars had them, some of them didn't. And it's a cool look. I really like that. The interior is really 80s, but it's effective. Seats need recovering, stuff like that, but other than that, it is actually in pretty decent shape. Under the hood is a inline 6, like you probably would suspect in a Supra. However, this is a 5MGE. This is a dual overhead cam 12-valve engine. So although it's dual cam, it still only has 2 valves per cylinder. At about 2.7 liters, it produces a little bit more power than does the factory, 2.4 liter KA. It does have the great inline 6 qualities of being smooth. It revs real nice. It revs real high. Makes power right up to the rev band or the red line. It's a really interesting engine. It's a really interesting car to drive. It has this bizarre, crazy throttle linkage system that I can't even begin to explain. You'll probably most frequently see this engine in Toyota Cressidas. And I want to stick with this engine. I really like it. It fits the car, it fits the theme of the car. However, I thought, leading into this, what this engine needed was probably a little refresh and probably valve seals. Toyota engines, they need valve seals all the time. We're going to try and compression test this guy, see if that's the case, and hope that's all that needs to be done. Alright, so we set out to do a compression test on this old guy and see what kind of shape we're in. Looking for cracked pistons, worn piston rings. Not too worried about valve seals. Valve seals don't really show up on compression tests very much. So we're kind of looking for decent numbers here. We need to cut off the fuel supply, so we're moving the fuse out of the fuel pump relay, and then we'll be good to turn her over and see how she does. Much to my surprise, we get a compression number on cylinder number 1 that is right in line with what it should be factory spec. Now we need to remove the intake and anything else that is in the way of the rest of the spark plugs, including the crazy throttle linkage setup. Cylinders number 2 and 3 come up results of 180, so pretty much right in line with factory specs and right in line with together. That's another thing, you're looking for numbers that are alike. Even if they're low, if they're all alike, that's still a good result. Things are looking good, so I leave for a little bit and let Jonathan kind of do his thing. And as he is pulling the number 4 spark plug, we have our first signs of a major failure, and that is the entire spark plug chamber basically was full of oil. And he's going to take the spark plug out and show it to the camera because the threads are completely covered in oil. The spark plug itself is covered in oil. The pintle of the spark plug is covered in like burnt oil, like the chalky stuff. Not good. That instantly leads me to believe that this cylinder is going to be way down on the compression numbers. Alright, well, hopefully this lighting is okay. After we did the compression test, I was both surprised, amazed, and disappointed. The compression is awesome. It was 180 across the board pretty much, with only a 2 or 3 psi difference. That is way within factory specs, and is way better than I expected. I am disappointed because cylinder number 4, as you saw, was drenched in oil. And initially my impression was, okay, it's a top-down leak, so valve cover leak, something like that, leaking onto the spark plug, no big deal, we can fix that. Unfortunately, this engine does not feature such a thing. The spark plug is screwed directly into the head, and that head is directly above the combustion chamber. Where's that oil coming from? The cylinder's not down on compression. There's no signs of like a cracked piston or anything like that. The top of the piston was dry, it was not covered in oil, so it's not as though the cylinder is full of oil. A lot of oil. I'm talking a lot of oil. The spark plug, like the base of the spark plug was changed color because it had been bathing in oil. So I've got to figure out where that oil was coming from. The leading theory right now is that there's perhaps a crack in the valley there of the head. So this head, the cams are off to the sides, and they have towers. Each cam is in a tower. The valley is part of the head. It does not get removed from the head. If it were any other engine, I would just say, great, let's go find a rebuilt head and throw it on there. There is no rebuilt heads for this engine. There is no rebuilt anything for this engine. I can't even find a used head for this engine. So if it is the case that it's a crack in the head on that cylinder, on that spark plug chamber, that's a big problem. So I gotta do my homework. I gotta do some research. We may have to pull the head off to figure this out. I'm not sure. The problem is it doesn't seem to be a crack in the combustion chamber. It's a crack in the spark plug chamber. Totally bizarre. Only I could find a car that has a problem like that. It's not my car, by the way. I do not own this car. This is the other gentleman you see in the video's car. I did encourage the purchase of this car, however, and he did drive it for a year, over a year, probably tens of thousands of miles, and it's a trooper, man. It really has stood up pretty well. It was not driven easy. It was driven very hard and I don't want to say abused, but you know, it was used. We picked this car up for like $2,500 or something like that, and it was in Daytona. We drove it 2 hours back in the middle of the night, sight unseen pretty much, and it made it. It's been pretty good. I really have grown attached to this car, so I hope we can figure out how to fix this engine issue. If we can, the plan is to do like a total refresh. Let me show you the shelf of parts. So if we can figure things out, all of this stuff, and even up there, is all parts for this car. There's a header, there's power steering lines, there's all the engine gaskets and hoses and stuff like that, suspension parts, clutch, a steering rack, all the stuff we want to do, including more stuff. I want to learn how to do some basic body repair. We have a new hatch for the car. You know, weld up some of the rust issues, not doing a restoration, just doing a get it good enough to, you know, be presentable. Figure out something to do with this moonroof that is totally rusted out. Gorilla tape is keeping us out of the weather right now. And then from there, who knows? But as of right now, that's going to be the state of the project. If anybody out there has any ideas on how to figure out this spark plug issue or this oil and number 4 spark plug issue, let me know. But I'll be doing a lot of homework and doing a lot of research on trying to figure that out. All right, that's the intro to Project Mark II Supra. We'll see. Hopefully we see it again. If you don't see it again, you can assume that something major is wrong, and it's going to take us a while to figure it out. Who knows? Maybe a V8 will end up in there if all comes to the worst.